very happy to see that you are doing things properly and following the instructions well. Thank you, children. Continue the same. We are learning about our changing earth. In the last sessions, we learned about the endogenic forces such as volcanoes and earthquakes, which are making changes on the earth's crust. Today, we are going to learn about the exogenic forces that make changes on the earth's surface such as sea waves, wind and glaciers. Let's see. Work of sea waves. The erosion and deposition of the sea waves gives rise to coastal landforms. Let's see what are the erosional and depositional features formed by the work of sea waves. Sea cave. Sea waves continuously strike at the rocks and cracks develop. Over time, they become larger and wider. Thus, hollow-like caves are formed on the rocks and they are called sea caves. This is a picture of sea cave. Sea arcs. As these cavities become bigger and bigger, only roof of the sea cave remain, thus forming sea arcs. This is a picture of sea arc. Stacks. Further erosion breaks the roof of the sea arcs and only walls are left. These wall-like features are called stack. This is a stack. The roof of the sea arcs lost and only the wall-like structure is remaining. This is called stacks. Sea cliff. The steep rocky coast rising almost vertically above the sea water is called a sea cliff. This is a sea cliff. Beaches is a familiar word for you. How are the beaches formed? When the sea waves deposit sediments along the shores, forming beaches. This is a beautiful scene of a beach. These are formed by the sediments deposited by the sea waves. Another important natural agent behind the exogenic forces are glaciers. Let's see the work of ice behind this. What are glaciers? Glaciers are rivers of ice. They erode the landscape by bulldozing soil and stone to expose the solid rocks below. When the glaciers move, they carve out deep hollows. As the ice melts, they get filled up with water and beautiful lakes are formed in the mountains. This is a beautiful lake picture formed by the glaciers. How are glacial moraines formed? The materials carried by the glacier, such as rocks, big and small, sand and silt, get deposited. These deposits form glacial moraines. Children, next we are going to study the work of wind in deserts. Mushroom rocks. Winds erode the lower section of the rock more than the upper part. Therefore, such rocks have narrower base and wider top. They are called mushroom rocks. You can see the picture of a mushroom rocks. This is a mushroom rock. You can see a mushroom rock have narrower base and a wider top, like a mushroom. That is why they are called mushroom rocks. Sand dunes. How are sand dunes formed in the desert? When the wind blows, it lifts and transports sand from one place to another. When it stops blowing, the sand falls and gets deposited in low hill-like structures called sand dunes. You can see the picture of a sand dune. Low hill-like structures formed in the desert by the work of wind. How are the sand dunes different from loess? How are the loess formed? When the grains of sand are very fine and light, the wind carry it over a very long distance. When such sand is deposited in large areas, not like a hilly-like structure, it is called a loess. You can see the picture of a loess. Now, let's recall what we learned by listening to a small video.
Work of sea waves. The erosion and deposition of the sea waves give rise to coastal landforms. Sea waves continuously strike at the rocks, cracks develop, and over the time they become larger and wider. Thus, hollow-like caves are formed on the rocks. They are called sea caves. As these cavities become bigger and bigger, only the roofs of the caves remain, thus forming sea arches. Further erosion breaks the roof and only walls are left. These wall-like features are called stacks. The steep rocky coast rising almost vertically above sea water is called sea cliff. The sea waves deposit sediments along the shores, forming beaches, work of ice. Glaciers are rivers of ice which too erode the landscape by bulldozing soil and stones to expose the solid rock below. Glaciers carve out deep hollows. As the ice melts, they get filled up with water and become beautiful lakes in the mountains. The material carried by the glacier, such as rocks, big and small, sand and silt, gets deposited. These deposits form glacial moraine. Work of wind. An active agent of erosion and deposition in the deserts is wind. In deserts, you can see rocks in the shape of a mushroom, commonly called mushroom rocks. Winds erode the lower section of the rock more than the upper part. Therefore, such rocks have narrower base and wider top. When the wind blows, it lifts and transports sand from one place to another. When it stops blowing, the sand falls and gets deposited in low hill-like structures. These are called sand dunes. When the grains of sand are very fine and light, the wind can carry it over very long distances. When such sand is deposited in large areas, it is called loess. Large deposits of loess is found in China.
Now we came to the end of this lesson, our changing earth. I hope all of you get an idea about exogenic forces and endogenic forces. All of you read the textbook well 2 or 3 times. Here are a few questions for you. You want to find out the answer and write it in your notebook and send the notes to me. First, define the following. To define the following: A. Sea cave, B. Sea cliff. Answer the following questions. First question: how are beaches formed? Second question: how are glacial moraines formed? Third question: what are sand dunes? You can find out the answer from the slides also. Okay, find out the answer and write it down. You have an activity. For doing this activity, you want to read the textbook well. It's in page number 19, activity 6. A crossword puzzle for you. You want to solve the crossword puzzle with the help of given clues. I hope all of you understood the lesson well. We came to the end of this lesson, so all of you read the textbook well. Complete the textbook exercise, complete the notes and do the activity. I will send the online test tomorrow. Prepare well for that. Thank you, children.